I hope this works. Hope. It's the first step to success, right? We have to believe. You've got to hope before you go, but then you've got to go. Sometimes we've got to flip the bucket, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Let's go.
Welcome to the Educators Among Us podcast, where we share motivational messages and inspiring stories for and about educators. Your host, Scott Barron, is author of the critically acclaimed book, Love 'Em and Lead 'Em, and provides powerful insights and wisdom for those who heed the call to teach, coach, lead, and serve at all levels of education.
This is Scott Barron, and I'm honored to be your host for the Educators Among Us podcast, where we just get to celebrate. We get to celebrate and love on, encourage, give perspective to those who have the courage to be in the classroom, who serve as coaches or on the staff, or they serve in the cafeteria, in the facilities, in the district office, in the diocese office, in whatever type of school system that you're in. Whether you're in the boardroom, whether you're at a preschool program, or whether you're just working the hallways as a volunteer, we're so thankful for you. You make a difference in a lot of people's lives. And of course, the influence of educators not only has an immediate influence, but it lasts a long time. And that's really a big part of why we do this, is to provide just a little bit of energy and a boost as you go through your week and as you consider just how impactful your work is. It's a noble calling, and we're thankful for those who answer that call every day, and some for their whole careers. And of course, we've had a chance to share some of those stories and continue to do so as a part of the Educators Among Us podcast. Like angels, we believe that they of course are educators among us, and they make such a lasting difference in the lives of so many people. I was on vacation. I was on vacation this week, and this past week we had a chance to, of course, enjoy the beach. And when you're planning a beach vacation, it's always interesting. When you're doing it with a lot of kids and grandkids, it's even more of an adventure. And you have to be wise about it, because there's all kinds of different variables that you're dealing with the logistics and with people and relationships and food and of course sunburn and all the other things that come with it. It requires a lot of planning, and that's something, fortunately, that Tammy's really good at. She takes care of all those details, and I get to enjoy and kind of do my assignments, and it's a win-win relationship for sure. And so when you think about it, there's a great quote from Herodotus, who says, "Hey, he is the best man. He is the best man who, when making his plans, fears and reflects on everything that can happen to him, but in the moment of action is bold," right? He is the man who first fears and reflects. He thinks about it. He considers the costs. He counts the costs, right? He thinks through the different options. And that's sometimes some of us are really gifted at that, and some of us aren't. And so we have to partner up with those people who have some more extra gifting in that area. But we do have to consider all the options. And sometimes people get into situations where they haven't really thought it through, and they kind of jump out there and they hope for the best. and hope is good. We need hope, but we also need the chance to think it through, right? And of course, once we've thought it through, then let's go. And that's the second part of this, right? But in the moment of action is bold, is courageous, is willing to step through and do what it takes to make it happen. And so, the vacation experiences can, provide some of those sources of inspiration. And that kind of happened as we were on the beach. The grandkids were playing in the sand at our favorite beach. And I noticed that they were trying to solve a problem, right? They were trying to think it through. They were trying to figure out, that the sandcastle walls, they kept collapsing. And so they were trying to figure out, how do we fix that? Because we keep doing the same thing over and over again. And these are young kids. They're like 6, 7, 8 years old. They're trying to solve for this problem, And so so one suggested, hey, let's add water to the bucket, the bucket of sand, and let's see if that makes the sand hard. And then before flipping it over, we can see if that works. And so they all said, yeah, that's a good idea. And so the seawater was then collected into another bucket. It was poured into the sand-filled bucket. And then then they all gathered around to see, okay, now what's going to happen? And they're ready to flip. And one of them, Naomi, smiled and she exclaimed, I hope this works, and it's kind of like us sometimes, right? I mean, there's times when we consider the options. We've done our homework. We've tried to think it through, and then we got to go. We had to hope this works, and let's flip the bucket, and so that's a part of what we want to consider as educators. As educators, like John F. Kennedy once said, there are risks. There are risks and costs to action, but they are far less than the long-range risks of comfortable inaction. And that's a vital part of what we do, and especially as we move into this next phase in our lives, because these next few years are going to be a real challenge. When nothing is at risk, trying new ways, extolling innovation, well, that's kind of like kids play, right? I mean, when there's nothing at risk, when we don't have anything that's vulnerable, well, then it's easy to talk about growth mindset or trying new methods, et cetera. But that's not usually the case. I mean, so many of our decisions as educators, right? They have consequences. They have consequences for us. They sometimes require us to get outside of our comfort zone, to think about things in a different way, to have to build different relationships, and to change. It's hard. It's hard to think about. How do we change? How do we get past some of those perceptions and find a way through it? And so, of course, clarity, we have an advantage when we have clarity regarding our core beliefs and our values. We know who we are. We know why we're doing this. We're living and we're leading on purpose. And that gives us a great deal of advantage. It enables greater wisdom and courage as we're faced with those moments, right? Knowing the power of our influence, we show up. I mean, we show up in the moment and we're there, we're present, and we also stand up. We're not just kind of waiting on things to happen, but we stand up and we lead, and we accept the fact that educators are leaders, because people are following us. They're seeking, a pathway, and that's what we do. And we make our mind up, right? So we show up, we stand up, and we make our mind up. We're going to go. And that's a vital part, because making prudent decisions is crucial. Is crucial for growth at every level of education. So we creatively and persistently expand our options to seek out better advice and find better ways. That's the joy of learning and growing and experimenting. And yeah, sometimes we have to flip the bucket and we have to say, I hope this works. But we're going to do it with intelligence. We're going to do it with foresight. We're going to do it with preparation. So be careful then. Ephesians 5:15-16 says, be careful, very careful then, how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, right? Making the most of every opportunity. You're called there for a reason. You've got opportunities to change lives, to create new pathways, to think about things in new ways. And so we have to realize that every aspect of schools, every aspect of schools and learning is being challenged now to adapt to new realities. We're facing different technologies, different ways of learning, different methods, things that no one has ever really dealt with before, and artificial intelligence and virtual reality and other types of even how schools are organized and expectations of policymakers and parents and colleagues. And right. So we bring the energy. We bring an energy and a willing spirit that ideally is more thoughtful than just hopeful. We're not just coming into this and rolling the dice. We ideally thought this through, but sometimes, again, we have to act boldly and we have to figure it out as we go. And that gets uncomfortable, but that's what effective educators do. So none of us manage time. And that's the important part of this as well, is we get stressed out. The tyranny of the urgent begins to dominate and we get overwhelmed sometimes. But listen, none of us manage time. We can only productively prioritize. And then, of course, daily practice the disciplines of both personal and professional development that enable better results. In other words, every day we get to choose our priorities. We can be intentional about blocking our time and knowing how we want to spend our time every day, and being intentional with how we plan both in the evening before as well as in the next morning before we start. There's certain habits that we know lead to higher productivity. Everybody gets 24 hours. And so we want to be very intentional about how we manage time. But we also know that there are personal disciplines and little habits and things. And so our challenge is just get better every day. We don't have to make, major leaps forward necessarily. Sometimes we have those breakthrough moments, but what we're looking for is just every day, sometimes just baby steps, just progress. And when we start seeing that, it becomes energizing, and we start seeing opportunities and we start gaining confidence, and we start solving problems, and man, it becomes a momentum builder, right? That's what we're looking for. The intensity of the schedule, the school schedule, and of course the unending distractions, they make it even harder to stick with our priorities, right? But our deeply rooted faith and a love for people, that keeps us going. That enables us to find that way through. So listen, make the most of every opportunity, my friend. Make the most of every opportunity, steadily developing the habits and the mindset that enable you to be bold in action, that enable you to be able to overcome sometimes those fears that want to lock you down, want to make you resistant to some of the innovations that are coming, and maybe even, being able to form new relationships, discover even more capabilities that are deep inside of you. That's a powerful part of our growth as educators. Listen, we're thankful for you, and we're thankful that you're a part of this podcast, that you get to be, able to share some perspective, hopefully, and use this not only for your own growth, but even to guide others. And we've gotten some emails back these last few weeks from educators, education leaders that are being able to use these messages as prompting for some great conversation, even professional development, to think it through and to challenge each other, make each other better. And that's beautiful, and that's why we love doing this type of work. And it's sort of we'd like to give you a coaching question to reflect on at the end of each of our Monday encouragements that we share. And of course, this is a message that we share every Monday morning. It goes out to all educators. We've got thousands of educators that subscribe to our Monday encouragement, which you can do on educators on edfellowship.org or at schoolgrowth.com. And so we share that message, and it's a way to just to give that little boost on a Monday morning to say, come on, we got a great week ahead. We're life changers. Let's do this, right? So a coaching question to consider as you're going through this week. Did I do my best to wisely live today? Did I do my best to wisely live today? Love them and lead them, my friend. This is Scott.
Thank you for joining us for the Educators Among Us podcast and for your courageous commitment to this noble calling. We get you and the challenges of this work. To stay connected with this community, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and weekly encouragement at educatorsamongus.com.